They sold you intelligence as a gift, a blessing, the thing that would make your life easier than everyone else's. Open every door, win every argument, build something lesser minds could only admire from a distance. They were wrong. One of the most consistent findings in modern intelligence research is that highly intelligent people often struggle in ways the average person cannot easily understand, quietly, privately, and with an intensity that seems to increase as cognitive ability rises. In 1921, a Stanford psychologist named Lewis Terman began tracking some of the most gifted children in America. Decades later, the data challenged many of his assumptions. Not one of his selected prodigies won a Nobel Prize, yet 2 boys he had personally excluded from the study eventually did. What happened inside that gap is the architecture of everything you are about to hear. The Karpinski verdict. In 2018, a researcher named Ruth Karpinski at Pitzer College published a study that should have dramatically altered the public conversation around intelligence. It did not. Karpinski surveyed members of American Mensa, the high IQ society where membership requires scoring in the top 2% of intelligence tests. She compared their rates of psychological and physiological conditions to national averages. Members of Mensa were significantly more likely to experience mood disorders, anxiety-related conditions, ADHD and autism spectrum traits. They were also more likely to report environmental allergies, autoimmune conditions, and asthma. They showed elevated levels of what researchers describe as central nervous system overexcitabilities, a state in which both mind and body respond to ordinary stimuli with extraordinary intensity. The phrase Karpinski used in her paper was clinical and direct. Intellectual ability, she wrote, is associated with risk for psychological and physiological overexcitabilities. The same neural architecture that allows you to think faster, deeper, and across more dimensions than the average person may also leave you more vulnerable to mental and physical strain. You are not imagining the sensory overload. You are not imagining the strange low-grade tension that follows you into rooms where everyone else appears perfectly comfortable. Your operating system runs hotter, and running hotter comes with costs that much of the population never has to pay. They warned you about envy, about not fitting in, about being misunderstood. They told you those were external problems, social problems, friction with a world that could not keep pace. But Karpinski's findings point inward. The friction is not only out there, it is inside the wiring itself. The Polish psychologist Kazimierz Dąbrowski spent decades documenting this phenomenon throughout the 20th century. He coined the term overexcitabilities to describe what he repeatedly observed in gifted individuals: intense intellectual curiosity, emotional reactions that seemed disproportionate to the trigger, sensory experiences so vivid they sometimes bordered on distress. Many of Dąbrowski's contemporaries viewed these traits as dysfunctions. He did not. He argued they were often the cost of advanced psychological development. What neither Dąbrowski nor Karpinski could fully capture in a journal article is that the cost compounds over time. A child with overexcitabilities becomes an adolescent struggling with sleep. The adult becomes someone who cannot quite remember the last time they felt completely at ease inside their own body. They are diagnosed with anxiety, with chronic fatigue, with digestive disorders, with migraines, with a dozen scattered conditions treated separately because few people ever stop to ask the larger question. The larger question is whether the body itself was designed for the intensity of the mind it carries. For some people, the answer appears to be no. You are paying a tax on your own intelligence. And almost no one ever explained the rate. There is a quiet, dangerous belief embedded in modern culture. The belief that smarter people make better decisions, that a higher IQ insulates you against the cognitive errors that quietly damage ordinary lives. The research suggests something less comforting. In the early 2000s, a cognitive scientist named Keith Stanovich at the University of Toronto coined a term that should be more famous than it is: disrationalia, the condition of having a high IQ and still being remarkably irrational. Stanovich demonstrated across a series of studies that intelligence and rationality are not the same thing. People with elevated IQs scored just as poorly as average individuals on tests of motivated reasoning. In some cases, they scored worse. Why worse? Because intelligence is not a truth-finding mechanism. It is a justification engine. The smarter you are, the better you become at constructing arguments for whatever you already wanted to believe. You do not reason your way toward the truth. You reason your way back to your preferences and dress them in stronger vocabulary. Hugo Mercier and Dan Sperber, two cognitive scientists who spent years studying the evolutionary function of human reason, arrived at the same uncomfortable conclusion. Reason did not evolve to help us think clearly. It evolved to help us defend our positions, persuade allies, and outmaneuver rivals. The smarter the brain, the more sophisticated the defense system. This is why high IQ individuals are surprisingly easy to mislead by their own preferences. Consider the Madoff case. Bernie Madoff operated the largest financial deception in modern history. The list of his victims read like a directory of intellectual elites: physicists, mathematicians, hedge fund analysts, Nobel laureates, philosophers, some of the smartest people in the room. They did not fall for him despite their intelligence. They fell for him because their intelligence enabled them to construct increasingly sophisticated reasons to dismiss the warning signs the average investor would have avoided immediately. The numbers looked too clean. The returns were unrealistic, they knew, and they reasoned themselves beyond that knowing in elegant, well-supported explanations until the entire structure collapsed and took their fortunes with it. The brilliant do this constantly on much smaller scales with their own lives. You feel something. The feeling is correct. The feeling says, this person is not being honest with me. This job is draining me. This version of myself is a costume. And the brain immediately gets to work building the defense for why the feeling is wrong. The argument is sound. The logic is airtight. The conclusion is comfortable. And the truth quietly disappears. You have done this. You know you have. You watched yourself argue your way out of a truth your body had already accepted. You used vocabulary that would have impressed a graduate seminar to convince yourself that what was happening was not happening. The average person stays in a bad relationship for 2 years. The high IQ person stays for 10 because for 10 years, they keep finding new frameworks that reinterpret the damage as growth. The average person leaves a job that steadily wears them down. The high IQ person writes a 30-page document explaining why this season of struggle is preparing them for something larger. The mind that can defend any position can also trap you inside any position. This is the first dark inheritance of an unusually capable brain. It does not make you free. It makes you the most articulate prisoner in the building. And the bars are constructed from your own sentences. The resentment archive. Most people are biologically gifted with forgetting. Their nervous systems are designed to file slights, betrayals, and small humiliations into a drawer that quietly self-destructs over time. 6 months later, they cannot remember the comment that wounded them. A year later, they cannot remember the person who made it. Smart people do not forget. They cannot. The same trait that makes them perceptive in the moment, the ability to notice subtext, decode tone, Register the half-second pause that revealed contempt, turns into a permanent record. Every micro-injustice gets logged. Every condescension is time-stamped. Every quiet betrayal is filed by date and category and revisited late at night when the rest of the world has gone to sleep. The high IQ adult is haunted by their own memory. There is a quirk of high resolution memory that researchers have observed for decades. Minds that excel at pattern recognition tend to encode autobiographical and emotional events with unusual fidelity. The Estonian-Canadian neuroscientist Endel Tulving built the foundational framework for understanding this kind of memory, episodic memory, the storage of specific personal experiences with their full sensory context, preserved like fossils in amber. This is not nostalgia. It is closer to a burden. You replay the conversation from 8 years ago and feel the same heat in your chest that you felt the night it occurred. You can still summon with remarkable precision the exact tone in your father's voice when he dismissed you when you were 14. The exact shape of the silence after a friend said something that crossed a line they pretended they had not crossed. The exact phrasing of an apology that wasn't one. Most people move on because they forget. The high IQ mind cannot afford that kind of easy forgetting. The data is too clear, and so resentment in the smart adult becomes geological. It accumulates in layers. Each year deposits another stratum. The person walking around the world with an IQ above 130 is often carrying a private museum of slides, organized chronologically, curated obsessively, and reviewed in the small hours of the morning when no one else is awake. This is why the brilliant often appear cold. They are not cold. They are heavy. They are carrying a quantity of accurate memory the average person could not lift. It is also why high IQ adults are so disproportionately drawn to philosophical frameworks of detachment, stoicism, Buddhism, the hard schools of psychological discipline. They are not adopting these systems for fashion. They are adopting them as triage, without an external structure that teaches them how to lay down what their memory refuses to release. The resentment will eventually harden into something worse than frustration. It will become a quiet, calcified contempt for humanity itself. And contempt, once it settles in, is almost impossible to remove. A pattern recognition machine with no off switch will eventually pattern match the entire species into the category of disappointment. That is the second wound. A memory you cannot soften. A library you never asked to build. The subgenius trap. There is a question almost no one asks about intelligence. And the absence of the question is itself a clue. What if the most dissatisfied IQ band is not the highest one? Consider the data carefully. People with IQs around 100, the statistical average, generally report the highest baseline life satisfaction. They are not lying. They are not in denial. They are operating in a world that was, in many ways, calibrated to their cognitive specifications. Conversations move at their speed. Entertainment matches their appetite. Social rituals satisfy them. The rules make sense. People with IQs above 175, the rarefied stratosphere, often disappear into a kind of monastic specialization, mathematics, theoretical physics, obscure philosophy. They build a life so narrow it does not require constant collision with normal society. They are alone, but the aloneness has shape. It has discipline. It has a workbench. The difficult band sits in the middle, roughly 130 to 155, high enough to see the structure of the world clearly, not high enough to escape it. They are smart enough to understand exactly how the system traps them and not smart enough to invent their way out. They can map the prison perfectly. They cannot find the exit. This is the population that fills psychiatric waiting rooms, philosophy departments, mid-level cubicles, And the comment sections of articles about how everything is broken. They know, they have known for years. And the knowledge does not save them. It indicts them. There was a man named William James Sidis, born in Boston in 1898, to immigrant parents who fed him language and mathematics like other children get oatmeal. He was admitted to Harvard at the age of 11. He gave a lecture on four-dimensional bodies at 12. The press called him the most intelligent person in America, possibly the most intelligent person in the world. His IQ has been estimated retroactively somewhere between 250 and 300, numbers that are likely exaggerated but indicate the territory his contemporaries believed he occupied. He spent the rest of his life withdrawing. He took clerical jobs, refused to teach, refused to publish under his own name, wrote obscure books about streetcar transfers and Native American history under pseudonyms, and died alone in a rooming house in Boston at the age of 46 from a cerebral hemorrhage. His final apartment contained a single object of value, a streetcar transfer collection. Sidis was not in the difficult middle band. He was so far beyond it that he had to construct an entirely different way of being to survive at all. Some people in the higher reaches do this successfully. Most do not. The people in the difficult middle do not have the luxury of escaping into pure abstraction. They are trapped at exactly the altitude where they can see what is happening to them in granular detail while still having to participate in it. You may be one of them. You can probably feel it in your chest as I describe it. You see your manager's incompetence in real time, and you cannot unsee it. You watch the inefficiency of the meeting, and your nervous system burns through fuel just sitting in the chair. You read the same news article everyone else reads and immediately register the logical gaps the author smuggled past everybody else. And there is no one to share it with. There is no one to save you from it. There is just you fully aware, fully awake, in a room of people who appear to be sleeping with their eyes open. Awareness without an exit becomes its own form of suffering. The witness problem. Now we cross into territory most smart people will not admit, even to themselves. You cannot be fully known. Not in the complete sense of the word. Not in the way songs, novels, and therapists describe being known, because to be known requires another mind capable of holding the contents of yours. And most of the time that mind is not in the room. This is not arrogance. It is logistics, a pattern recognition system that operates at high resolution, generates more data per second than a typical mind can comfortably absorb in an hour of conversation. To be heard, you have to compress. You have to translate. You have to take the 17-dimensional thought you actually had and flatten it into something that can be received without overwhelming the person across from you. Every translation costs something. After a few decades of translation, the smart adult arrives at a strange realization. The version of themselves that the world has met is not them. It is a curated, simplified, socially digestible version, a two-dimensional projection of a three-dimensional thought. The original thought is still in there. It just never made it out intact. This is what loneliness feels like at higher altitudes of cognition, not the absence of company. Company is often abundant. It is the absence of a mirror, capable of reflecting what is actually happening inside you. The British psychoanalyst Peter Fonagy formalized a concept in attachment research called mentalization, the capacity to accurately model what is happening inside another person's mind. Most relationships, even loving ones, operate on partial mentalization. The other person is present, they mean well, but their internal model of you is missing entire dimensions, and you can feel those missing dimensions every time they respond. You say something, they reply. The reply is directed at a simpler version of what you said. You feel the gap and you smile and let it go. You tell yourself it does not matter. It matters. Across years, that gap becomes the defining feature of your relationships. You begin to suspect that no one has ever actually met you, that the person they love is a public-facing avatar you constructed to make yourself understandable, that if they ever encountered the actual operating system underneath, they would step back, not because of what is inside, but because it does not match what they imagined. Some smart people respond to this by becoming intensely solitary. Some become relentless journal writers who pour their internal world into notebooks, anonymous essays, or therapy sessions. Some become compulsive explainers who try to download everything onto whoever is sitting nearest. None of these strategies fully solve the problem. The problem is not solvable. It is structural. You are operating a machine no one else has the manual for. And every relationship, even the deepest, is a kind of polite agreement to ignore that fact. This is the wound that does not heal. Not because love is absent, but because translation is always incomplete. The smart adult who finally accepts this stops grieving the perfect witness and starts learning how to become his own. The predictive grief. There is one more cost that nobody charges your account for in advance, but which you have been paying your entire life. You grieve things before they happen. Pattern recognition does not stop at the present. It runs forward. The same neural machinery that lets you predict where a conversation is heading also lets you predict the trajectory of relationships, careers, families, and your own mortality. You see the curve of the line, and you feel the future arrival in your body in the present moment. The merely brilliant grieve their parents while their parents are still alive. They notice the small declines, the slower walk. The second time asking about the medication, the moment a story gets repeated, and the grief arrives immediately. Not in 5 years when it will be appropriate, now, tonight, while the parent is in the next room making tea. They mourn relationships during the relationships. They detect the small fracture that signals an eventual ending months before the ending occurs. By the time the separation actually arrives, they have already attended the funeral. The conversation is merely the formality. This is not pessimism. This is the operational cost of seeing trajectories. Daniel Gilbert at Harvard, in his research on effective forecasting, demonstrated that human beings are generally poor at predicting how they will feel in the future. The average mind underestimates its own resilience. It assumes the worst event imaginable will be permanently devastating, and is then surprised by how quickly normality returns. The high IQ mind suffers from the inverse problem. It is too accurate. It models the trajectory clearly enough that the predicted suffering becomes present suffering. The grief arrives before the loss. By the time the loss occurs, there is little reaction left. And observers often misread this as coldness. It is not coldness. It is exhaustion. The grieving already happened. The Czech writer Milan Kundera spent much of his work exploring the question of weight, the heaviness of memory, of choice, of consequence. There is a quieter weight he gestured toward, but never named directly. The weight of futures that have not yet arrived. The past is fixed. The future is alive, mutating, generating new anticipatory sorrows every day. If you have ever felt sadness at a stranger's wedding because you could see, with uncomfortable clarity, the future strain hidden in the way the groom held his bride's hand a little too tightly, you are operating in this zone. You are not broken. You are tuned to a frequency the rest of the world has largely been spared. Most of life for the smart adult is the absorption of tomorrow's losses today. You have been paying for the future on installment for as long as you can remember. That alone could explain the exhaustion. The Terman verdict. Now we return to the boys. When Lewis Terman launched his genetic studies of genius at Stanford in 1921. He was certain he was assembling the future intellectual aristocracy of America. He gathered roughly 1,500 children. All scored above 135 on his intelligence tests. Some scored well above 150. He followed them across the span of their adult lives. The study continues today, decades after his death. The termites, as they came to be known, did fine. Many became professionals, lawyers, doctors, professors. Some had successful careers, some did not. By conventional standards, they performed about as well as you would expect a group of highly intelligent people to perform. But the original promise that this group would produce the next generation of revolutionary minds never materialized. Not one. Terman Child won a Nobel Prize. Not one fundamentally reshaped a discipline. Two boys, however, had been tested as children and rejected from the study because their scores were not high enough. Their names were William Shockley and Luis Walter Alvarez. Shockley would later co-invent the transistor and reshape the modern world. Alvarez would win the Nobel Prize for his work in particle physics and later help propose the asteroid extinction theory, explaining the disappearance of the dinosaurs. Both won Nobel Prizes. Neither had qualified for Terman's gifted study. The implication is one Terman never fully accepted, even though his own data pointed toward it. Whatever produces transformative intelligence is not the same thing as scoring high on an intelligence test. The traits the test measures, speed, memory, abstraction, recognition, are not necessarily the traits that lead to original thought. In some cases, they may even work against it, because to score brilliantly on the test, you must be exceptionally good at recognizing the patterns the test rewards. You must become a master of conventional cognition. You must absorb and internalize the dominant cognitive style and learn to perform it efficiently. The test is, in a sense, a measure of how well you have adapted to the existing mental order. Original thought often requires the opposite. It requires the willingness to challenge the dominant cognitive style, to see what the test does not see, to step outside frames the test cannot measure. The difficult truth of high IQ is that the trait may not automatically lead to the kind of mind that changes anything. You can be the most articulate prisoner in the building and still be a prisoner. You can win every argument and still be mistaken about your life. You can pattern match the entire human species and still move through life feeling unseen. The number on the test is not a promise. It is a description of what you can do quickly within the existing rules of the game. Whether the game itself is worth playing is a question the test cannot answer. Because the test is part of the game, there is one quiet thing left to consider, and then I will leave you with it. The smart adult spends most of his life resenting the world for not matching his speed. Eventually, if he is honest, he begins to suspect a different possibility. That his speed is not the gift he was told it was. That his perception is not always accurate. That his rationalizations are often more dangerous than his blind spots. That the mind he has been so proud of is also the mind that has, on more than one occasion, misled him with an articulacy nobody else could have matched. The first act of real intelligence is mistrust of one's own intelligence. Until you reach that mistrust, you are not yet using the mind. You are being used by it. Sit with that. Subscribe if you haven't.